Hello, my name is
Joel Schoonbeck, and you have been a blessing the last 8 years for me and my family, so I want to thank you for that.
Well, you are a blessing and you're welcome.
My question, I've been thinking about this for the last year or so. When time ceases and everything is said and done, will there be more people in heaven or hell? And the reason I'm thinking about this is that in Revelation 7, John talks about this innumerable number before the throne of God. And in Colossians, Paul speaks that in chapter 1, verse 18, that in all things Christ would have preeminence. So I would take that to mean that he will be the winner over Satan, and we know that in the end. But then also, in Matthew 7, Jesus teaches us that wide is the way that leads to destruction, but narrow is the way that leads to life, and few there be that will find it. So Jesus is talking about few finding heaven, but in Revelation, John is talking about this innumerable number, which seems to be more than are in hell. So I don't know how to reconcile that.
Well, that is a really good question. I'll give you the short one while you're going, because our friend from Grand Rapids, Mr. Love Wins, what is his name? Yeah, Rob Bell. He uses his universalism idea to say, in the end, love wins, and so God has to have more than hell. It wouldn't be right if more people go to hell than go to heaven. What's interesting is, Joel, to answer that from the Bible, it doesn't say. So thankfully, we don't know. But we can get a lot of clues. This numberless multitude in Revelation 7 tells us that the greatest ingathering of souls in history is during the tribulation. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that when God is getting ready to destroy the earth as we know it, and to bring all of humanity to a standstill and to their knees, and have them all crawling in the culverts and caves and hiding for their lives, that before he does that, he sends 144,000 invulnerable commandos, the 144,000 who are literal messianic. It's like 144,000 Apostle Pauls who don't care if you stone them or imprison them or beat them. They're just going to keep talking. You know, the Jewish people are tenacious. We all know that. And can you imagine 144,000 Apostle Pauls? And that's what he's going to send out the first wave. And they're going to go to every corner of this earth. And while they're going out, he sends the two witnesses who are doing weather changes and fire from heaven, and also are unable to be killed. They are protected by God, and so they can't be taken out by a sniper or a drone or something. And that's only in the first half. Remember the first half of the tribulation, because at the middle point is when the two witnesses are killed by the beast and are taken back into heaven. But then after that, in chapter 14, the 144,000 are still doing their Apostle Paul witness, and the Lord sends an angel in Revelation 14 and about verse 6, who, if anybody has missed the 144,000 or the two witnesses, the angel slowly encircles the earth and speaks in audible, gospel-giving words to everyone on the face of earth. God is not willing that any should perish, and it appears that what Joel cited here, that the single largest ingathering of souls, because in Revelation 7 they're asked, I mean, you ought to look at it because I want you to see the clues. It says in Revelation 7, who are these? And it says in verse 14, sir, you know. So he said to me, these are the ones who came out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. And so they are the ones that are clothed in white robes, and they're the multitudes that are probably killed for their faith because they're killed by the Antichrist. And so the tribulation will have this numberless host that no one can number, and they are out of the tribulation, and it appears that all of the gospel preaching and all of the tract distribution, all those Gideon Bibles and all the Christian radio and all of the global partners all over the world, that all of that work is not in vain, and from that group comes the largest ingathering of any one spot. But back to this real quickly. What do I believe? I believe what you ended with. Jesus, who happens to be the judge of all, said, number one, that the end of the world is going to be just like it was in the days of Noah. And in the days of Noah, answers in Genesis as well as Institute of Creation Research have calculated that at the rate of birth and the length, the longevity of the fertility of couples in the pre-flood world, that there could have been, at the flood, as many as 1 billion people alive on earth. Wow. And how many were saved? 8. So God is not in a numbers game at all. He allowed the longest sermon in history to go on. Noah was a preacher of righteousness, and he preached for over 100 years. And not one person responded at all, even though God graciously offered them. In fact, there was extra room on the ark. Did you know that all the land animals only, if you go to Answers in Genesis, you see that there was lots of extra room. There could have been quite a few more people that could have joined Noah and his family, but they didn't. So I agree with Jesus, who said, remember what what I did at the flood, God's wrath, and remember this, that broad is the way that leads to destruction, which is hell, and many there be that are on that road, and few there be that find it. So love does win, but not in the Rod Bell way, in God's way, which will come back when we get back to the other question, because I really want to touch on that, because it's really significant. It really does answer this whole thing, because this has to do with the sovereignty of God, His justice, His mercy, and salvation, and whether or not God figures salvation the way we do, which would be, my team wins if we have more. And God isn't like that. What God is showing is how awful sin is, and how completely, even when He leaves the door open for 100 years, no one would come in if He didn't drag them in. That's how bad sin is. It makes me really very cautious about sin. I know a lot of people that try and manage their sin, like they only sin a little and they kind of manage it. Sin is a monster, and it's so horrible that we can't manage it, and it completely blinds and deadens people to God. And unless God completely transforms them, opens their eyes and turns them to light, no one would seek Him. And so that's a good question, Joel, and it's kind of a sobering one. I'm glad the Bible doesn't answer it. The only clue we have is right there. Because Jesus declares in John chapter 5 that He is the judge, and at His voice all that are in the graves will rise, some to righteousness and blessing, and some to everlasting destruction. But He, the judge, who already knows the ending, says, few there be. And that's how it always was. At the flood, with Israel, there was only the remnant. Most of Israel didn't believe. And at the end will be the greatest ingathering, but that will only be one generation. The biggest harvest is the last generation. And it's amazing. That's kind of a tribute to the Lord's mercy.